What's going on, everyone? I'm Sir James from GamerFuzion.com, and I'm here to give you my review on the Expedition's Conquistador. Sorry for my mispronunciation. Now let me go ahead and talk about the graphics in this game. The overall graphics in this game was not too bad. I did notice in some sections in the game where the texture quality was really muddy and not that appealing, but the majority of the time the graphics were alright. I mean, the forests look like forests, the towns look like towns, and the ruins look like ruins. And I did notice a big difference in terms of from the overhead view, and of course once you get into combat. I did notice a huge graphical improvement once you get into combat. There's a lot of detail put into the combat sections. I mean, in terms of the plant life, the actual ground itself, the units, and so forth. And even too, when you're on the overhead map, you know, going to your different locations, I noticed they put a lot of details into the town segment and so forth, but the overall graphics in this game were pretty good. Now let me go ahead and talk about the gameplay. In the game, you're playing as a Spanish commander who's setting off on an adventure into a new world. After he stumbles upon an island, he ends up getting his ship, his crew, everything taken away except for his name. And then from there, you're doing a variety of different quests and campaigns in order to get your ship and crew back so you can continue your adventure into the new world. Now in the game, it's pretty simple. What you're doing is that every time you interact with a character, you're going to have a variety of different texts to read. There's no voiceovers in the game, it's just strictly reading text and picking what you want to choose. Now every time you interact with the character, you're going to have 3 or 4 different responses you could give back to the actual character itself. Some will even have areas where you could do diplomacy, or you could actually interact, make threats, and so forth. But then again, every decision you make in the game will affect the outcome in terms of your actual crew itself. So for example, let's say someone was asking me questions like, let's say for example, if a little boy came up to me, said, hey, can you help me find my dog? And then I have 4 different responses, and the one I selected is like, beat it, kid, I don't have time for you. Then obviously my crew is going to lose morale. That's the kind of same situation in this game. And of course too, you could do different missions where you could try to do a little diplomacy. It's like, hey, we could work things out. Or you could be, like I said, you could just be like the killer type of person. You'd be like, you know what, let's go ahead and end this. You're going down once and for all. Then like I said, depending on what you pick will be the difference in terms of the morale your units have. And if your units start losing a lot of morale, they'll actually leave your crew. They'll actually come up to you and say, hey, listen, can I talk to you for a second? Listen, I don't like the things that you've been doing in this crew, and I want out. And like from there, you could go from different situations. You could go, you know what, you're right, I was doing wrong. If you want to leave, you can leave peacefully. I hope you have a safe journey. Or in the end, you could be like, you know what, if you want to leave, then it's over my dead body, and then you could kill them from there. And then, like I said, that would also affect your morale. So different things in the game will affect. In terms of the movement, every time you're in a town, you have an infinite amount of movement. Every time you leave the town, you're going to have this little meter on the top. Now this is the part where I do see it to be really annoying, because every 5 to 10 seconds, actually no, more like 5 to 7 seconds, you're going to have to stop and make camp, because you only have a certain amount of movement in order until you can't move anymore. Once you reach the maximum movement, you have to select this little icon on the bottom right. When you select it, you're basically making camp. I like what they're going with this. In terms of the making camp, you can select units, go hunt for food, fetch water. You can pass out food to all your units, make sure everyone's happy. As long as everyone's happy, then you're going to have a good reputation, a morale built up for your actual team itself. If you end up not giving food proper to everyone, then you're going to lose morale of certain units, and like I said, which may lead to units leaving, or they end up getting sick after your journey. This is like I said, I like what they're going with this, but the fact that every 5 to 7 seconds you're always stopping to make camp, which does get really annoying quickly in the game. And so I highly recommend you start making the right choices so you don't have to start all over like I end up doing. But like I said, I like what they're going with it. And now let me go ahead and get before I get into the combat, also to what I want to add is that, you know, different things are going to happen into the real world, such as you're journeying, like maybe one of your units' weapons broke, and you're going to have the little pages like, hey, you know what, my weapon broke. Do you have any tools that I could use to repair? As long as you have, you know, such as food, tools, and so forth, and even money, you could fix your unit's weapon. Occasional times one of your units may end up getting some type of disease or sickness, and then as long as you have some units in there to heal your team, like maybe 3 or 4 days later. And in terms of days, it's like every time you finish your move, you make camp, that's pretty much a day. So within the next 3 or 4 days, your unit is going to be like, oh, you know what, I'm feeling much better. Okay, he got over his sickness. You could begin your adventure and so forth. Now, once you get into combat, it's like a turn-based combat. Before you begin, you can move your units around in the actual green zones of where you want them to begin. And then once it starts, you begin your movement and combat itself. You have a pretty basic variety of units. You have obviously melee units, range units, and of course you have units that are able to heal your other units as well. What happens is that when you make a move, you're going to notice a light green and dark green side. For example, let's say if an enemy is close enough. Alright, let me go ahead and use this one for example to make it much more sense. Let's say I have a range unit. Obviously, ranger units are good because they could shoot across the map pretty easily, right? And of course, it depends on their accuracy and how far they are from the target. Now, let's say if I select that unit and I move them, there's going to be 2 different color green spots. You're going to see a dark green and a light green. If I move that unit into a light green spots, that unit is able to perform an action still. Now, if that unit was moved into a dark green spot just for a more advanced movement, then I'm going to lose that action altogether. And of course, too, when you're engaged in combat and so forth, what happens is that pretty much each unit attacks one at a time. If a unit tries to cross you, you're going to do what's called a counter and so forth. But the combat is pretty basic and easy understandable. The best way I could have tried to describe it is kind of like similar to Heroes of Might and Magic, which that's end up being the combat that I keep referring to. But the overall gameplay is not too bad. Like I said, I like what they're going with it. Just in terms of the actual movement, every time you make camp, every 5 to 7 seconds, that's what really deteriorates me from the game just a bit, but not too much. As for the sound in this game wasn't too bad either. The majority of the time you're going to be listening to the peaceful background music in the game. When it gets into combat, the combat sound effects are pretty basic. You know, you're just going to have a quick slash or jab when your units are using melee attacks, and of course when they're firing with a pistol or rifle, you're just going to have a quick sound effect of the gun. That's pretty much about it. So the sound together is basic, but I would say the top quality of it is the actual soundtrack of the game. Now, as for the lifespan, does this game have a great lifespan or a short lifespan? It really depends on the player itself because everyone's different in terms of what they're into. Like I said, this is pretty much a strategy game where you gotta pay attention to what's going on in your crew, such as the morale and stuff like that. So this game could have a great lifespan if you like this style of game, or it could be really lifespan, or it might be something you wait for like a Steam sale or something like that. But the overall lifespan in this game is not too bad. For me, it's kind of a standard lifespan altogether. As for the innovative, did they bring anything new to the table, or is this stuff that we've already seen before? It's kind of a mixture of both. I like what they're going with the game. I like the fact that every time you're interacting with the character, you got to be careful what you choose, otherwise you're going to end up affecting your team altogether. I also like the fact that every time, you know, once your movement expires, you make camp. You can select units to go out and fetch, you know, firewood. In terms of going hunting, fetching water, I like that mechanic altogether. But I just feel like it needs a little bit more touch up in that section. But together, I thought this game was a lot of fun. Like I said, if you like that style of game, this is something that's probably going to grab your attention. If this is something that does not grab you that much, and it's probably not going to grab your attention unless if it ends up going on sale one of these days. But overall, I'm going to go ahead and give Expeditions a 8.5 out of 10. Altogether, this game was great. It just needed a little bit more work together than I think it could have been better, especially fix the whole movement section. But like I said, in the end, I'm going to give this game an 8.5 out of 10. If you'd like to check out some gameplay, you can check it over at GamerFuzion.com. Anyways, I'm Sir James, and remember, GamerFuzion empowers your gaming.